The host of Barstool College Football Show, the Pro Football Show, and Unnecessary Roughness, it is Barstool's Kayce Smith joining us here on Will Cain Country. What's up, Kayce?
I'm just happy to be here, Will, and I knew what I was walking into. You're a Texas guy. I'm an A&M girl, so I wanted, to make sure I'm wearing my A&M sweatshirt. It's a nice Friday. It's cool outside. Why not talk a little college football? I had to do it. I
You
had
wore
to.
your A&M sweatshirt, and you're feeling good, and you're feeling good right now. How insecure are you that this is just a fleeting feeling, that you're just good for right now? I mean, granted, your right now this year as an Aggie has lasted a little longer than it does in other years when you come out of the gates maybe 2-0, 3-0, and you're like, we've got it. It's lasted longer into the season this year, but you have to have this feeling that has been validated throughout your life. Sooner or later here, the wheels come shooting off the car.
Will, see, this is when people ask me why I feel like this as an Aggie, that I just need to take what you just said and clip it and send it to them, because this is what I've dealt with my entire life. This is the patronizing question that I always get. And to be fair, it's a very fair question. It's a very so
Yes.
this is where I am currently. It's like every week I try to tell myself things can change, right? Things can change. Mike Elko is different. This culture is different. And right before kickoff, every single week, I'm like, just know it could happen. And it hasn't happened yet. So I will say that. Also, we haven't won a conference championship since 1998, national title since 1939. Everything you just said is completely correct. But right now, I need the hope that I have. Okay. I need you to let me have it.
So I can be patronizing or give you a little bit of grief because history has validated exactly
Correct.
what will happen with the Aggies before the season is over, and then you end up a 3 or 4 loss team. But I can at the same time be gracious and say, no, your team looks different. Your team looks good.
Yeah.
Your quarterback has what it takes to be a winning, at least right now it seems like a winning quarterback in college football. So, I mean, you've shown a lot more than my team. Let's just put it that way. I have like half of football against Oklahoma. That's what I've got. All my hopes rest on the second half in the Red River Shootout. You've got a season.
But to be honest, and I feel like a lot of my friends who are Texas fans would take beating OU 10 out of 10. So at least you have that. Like, had you guys gone in and lost that game, especially with John Mateer not being 100%, you have that. Arch did look good. And here's the thing is, like, somebody who's, an Aggie, you know how this goes. Like, you're a Texas guy. You understand, like, in our worlds, it's we hate Texas, we hate OU, you guys hate A&M, like Texas Tech, who's good this year, like they can catch some of it too. But as a college football person and somebody that covers it nationally, like it was shocking to me to see what Arch looked like early in the season, and it was not something that I expected at all. So that now that we've seen a little bit of it against OU, it's like, okay, maybe it just took a little bit for it to click. And then the Aggie side of me is like, I don't want it to click because we got to play on Thanksgiving. So let's just keep that, keep it away from us, please. But I will, like I say, patronizing. I know it's absolutely true. When you used the word insecure, that tapped into my insecurity, and that's where this is coming from. This is an Aggie insecurity that I'm born and raised with. My 2-year-old son is going to be born and raised with. So we just, we got to hash
That's
it out a
right.
little bit.
Yeah. Little brother. That's right. It's
Yeah,
little brother.
See, and this is where like we're already off to a bad start here. Okay, I'm sitting here happy. We play Arkansas this week. You're a future me problem.
So we're not going to make this. I'm here with Kayce Smith at Barstool. We're not going to make this a Texas exclusive episode, but we are going to dive into some of the things that Kayce and I share in common and some curiosities that we share. But we're going to talk about national college football and pro football. But you said something interesting to me. You said you may have been speaking in the royal we as a Texan, but we hate Texas A&M. We hate OU. But of course, I think the we for you is always Aggies. So I'm curious who the second most hated team for you is. Obviously, number one is Texas. Who do you hate second? At this point, I think you guys want it to be LSU, but hatred has to be mutual. And I'm not sure that's a mutual hatred. I don't know who your second biggest rival is after Texas.
So because I grew up, so I'll be 37 next week. So I grew up in the Big 12 era when college football for me was like at its peak, as a kid. And so OU would be there. And when it comes to fans and back and forth, like I OU fans and I still go at it. I do have a lot of friends now that are LSU fans or a lot of coworkers at Barstool, and they're the worst. They are like, I think LSU fans are just hateful and mean and nasty. So they're there. But as far as on the field, if I had to rank who I would want to beat, it would absolutely be Texas, number one with a bullet, and then OU. The Red River Shootout, my dad said growing up, was always, it's the only game he ever wants both teams to lose. Like that is the way I feel as well. Like no one needs to win that game, and I would be okay if that game went into 100 ties and there was no winner. So I would say that. But I do think from the SEC standpoint, it is LSU. But they've also, when A&M was in the Big 12 and we played LSU a few times, they were always very mean and always beat us really badly. So I feel like that's maybe another little brother syndrome that I would never tell them at work, but I can tell you, Will.
Well, I think the other team that you mentioned that deserves a conversation, not just locally but nationally, is the one that's not only been little brother, but it's like the first cousin that only makes it around to the family reunion once a year, and everybody's like, "Oh yeah, Texas Tech is here." But looking for a rivalry, looking for someone to hate, looking for someone to hate them. But Texas Tech is for real, and I have been saying, within 2 or 3 years, Texas Tech is going to be an annual entrance into the college football playoff, and by virtue of that, they're going to just keep getting more and more national attention, better and better recruits, and then I don't think they're going to be a one and done in the playoff. But the timeline I had was off because it looks like it could be this year. This weekend, by the way, Texas Tech goes all the way out to Arizona State, and nationally, people are starting to recognize it. Oh, this team is really good. So I think everybody in Texas, and then I think by extension, everybody in the nation, better get ready for the Red Raiders.
Absolutely. And what they have done there and having the money that they do, which we all know, the oil money in Texas is for every school. And they went into this transfer portal, this NIL era, and they said, we're going to fix everything that's wrong with us. We're going to put as much money as we possibly can into this program. And you're right. It immediately hit. Then you get a guy like Joey McGuire, who does have the culture and he's got an understanding of it. The guys love to play for him. And we were actually at Utah when Texas Tech was there because Barstool travels with Big Noon Kickoff now. And so, our show probably would have never gone to Utah for that game, but we did because they were covering that game. And the Utah fans that week were ecstatic. They were so happy. And Texas Tech just dismantled them. Everything about that game from start to finish was Texas Tech, and they keep doing it every single week. And so, they go to Arizona State this week. I don't know if Sam Levitt's playing or not. I know that that's still a question. I don't think it matters. I really, truly don't. I think Texas Tech is the class above everybody else in that conference. And again, from a professional standpoint, it's like, wow, I love watching this team play. And then from a personal standpoint, it's like, I don't want this either. Like, we don't need Texas Tech all of a sudden having a leg up, in this conversation. But they're for real. And it would shock me if they don't win the Big 12 and make a run in the playoff.
I have a Texas Tech theory that even my buddies in Texas have a hard time stomaching. Now, I'm a little biased. I did marry a girl from Lubbock, but my theory, and I want to see what you think as a fellow Texan. You're a little younger than me, so times change. And from what I hear now, if you're a young man and you're looking for the best-looking girls in Texas, you need to go to Fort Worth, that they're now at TCU. But growing up, the answer was they were at Texas Tech. And my theory is also, I've never met a dude that went to Tech that I didn't like. Like, Tech guys are quintessentially Texan. And so I think what's going to happen here is, instead of all of these kids in Texas who can't get into A&M or Texas, instead of running off to Auburn and Georgia, which is happening, within a couple of years, they're all going to be going to Texas Tech.
I agree with you. I know my parents are listening. By the way, my mom's a big fan of yours, so she's very excited. She's been the most excited she's been that I've done something professionally in forever this morning. So she's listening. I'm sorry, Mom. I was a sophomore in high school, and my best friend had a cousin that was at Tech, a female cousin. So we took our, quote, spring break in Lubbock. And it was the first time I ever had anything to drink. Again, sorry, Mom. But I had so much fun. And the statute of limitations is out now. I'm way too old for this to matter. It's been 20 plus years. But I had so much fun. And the one thing that I said when I got back to high school was, listen, if I don't get an A&M, I want to go to Texas Tech because there were some really hot guys there. There were some really good-looking people there. It was so much fun. And when I got to college and I had friends who went to Tech, like, we would make that drive from College Station. We were like, we got to go. It's a blast there. I never went to Lubbock and had a bad time, unless A&M lost, and then I could get over it because Lubbock was so much fun. So I agree with you. It is a little bit too far out of the way. It's in the middle of nowhere for me, but once you got there, it was phenomenal.
Okay, so again, I promise everyone listening, this isn't going to be just an indulgence of Texas talk. We have to talk about national sports, but Kayce and I started talking about this right before we came on air. She lives in New York and has been there for 8 years. I lived in New York, Kayce, for a long time, 15 years. And I asked her, are you going to come back? Do you want to come back? And her answer was no. But you have a young son. So I just am just out of curiosity. So you're from the DFW area. You end up at Texas A&M. The career takes you around the country. Media does. And you end up in New York. But both of my sons were born in New York, Kayce. And it took a while. But we finally got back. We're back. We're in Dallas. And you love the energy of the big city. But my prediction is you're going to want to be back. I don't know when, but you're going to want to be back in Texas.
It's already started to happen a little bit. Like I said, had you asked me this, so my son's 2.5. Had you asked me this 3 years ago, I would have said absolutely not, never, mark it down with a Sharpie. It has gotten a little bit more because, every time I take him, out of this, he does love the city, but you had kids who grow up, like this is all they know. When he sees a backyard, he's like, this is great. Like, this is amazing. It's also hard because my whole family's still in Texas. So I always say this, I loved my childhood in Texas. Had never wanted to go anywhere other than A&M. I think that I was in Boston for a little bit first, and then I've been in New York, that it was almost like so different than what I grew up with, the energy of the East Coast and, the difference in even their sports teams. Like I grew up, in the Dallas area. I love college football. Like professional sports were so far down the list for me. Like that was something that I loved when I was in Boston, was the different feeling of that. And I can totally see your point because I know there's a lot of great schools for people to send their kids around here. I don't want my son being a Manhattan teenager. I can't have that. They're scary people, they're afraid of nothing. Like I want him to have a childhood that I grew up with. So I do agree with you. And I'll tell again, shout out my mom and dad. They want your prediction to come true. Obviously they want my son back in Texas. Right. So we'll see.
I did that.
We'll see.
I did that for your mom. I did
yeah,
that.
I know you see, and see now, see, this is what's going to happen. Now they're going to be like, see, Will said you need to move back. Like, so are you going to look, this is, I knew what you were doing. I knew what you were doing. You wanted it. She likes you. So now.
The media is moving. The media center of the universe is moving out of New York. So you might as well help pioneer it back into Texas. I mean, Fox News hosts a show from Dallas. The Texas Stock Exchange has been listed. Goldman Sachs is moving their biggest offices to Dallas. So I don't know why anyone anymore needs to be in New York. But now this is a good transition.
Okay.
This is a good transition because you brought up Mike Elko, and I'm going to use this as a conversation to get into some bigger issues. Your colleague, your buddy, Brandon Walker over at Barstool, he put this tweet out. He said, this is going to be the wildest coaching season ever in college football. You reposted this, Kayce. Penn State, Florida, Oklahoma State, Virginia Tech, UCLA, Arkansas already opened by mid-October. Auburn's going to come available. I wouldn't rule out Oklahoma. Madness. Do you think, and we'll talk about some of these coaching openings, but with the news this morning that Curt Cignetti signed an $11 million a year extension with Indiana, it essentially takes the biggest name, the hottest commodity out of it. I think the guy that probably would have been the front runner for Penn State. Does that make you a little nervous in keeping Mike Elko?
It does. It does. And even when it first happened. So first of all, one of my biggest things going into the season was that I was just not high on Penn State. James Franklin kept them in the conversation for a long time. The 12-team playoff was made for somebody like James Franklin because he could never beat the Ohio States and the Michigans when they needed to get into the 4-team. The 12-team was there. But he could never win the big game. It's the narrative that we all heard, and it doesn't matter now because their wheels fell off so fast. It was such a disaster that even after they lost to UCLA, we had conversations on our shows, on our podcasts. It was like, they're going to let him finish the season out, right? You can't lose the way that they did at home versus Northwestern after, just mere 2 weeks before being where they were. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, now they're going to look around the country and say, who are the hottest coaches in the country right now? Curt Cignetti obviously being that number one answer, especially after what they did against Oregon last week. And then Mike Elko, who has, he turned Duke around very quickly. He was at A&M before as a defensive coordinator, comes in, and after the disaster that A&M was with Jimbo Fisher, with all the money in the world, all the talent in the world. So that does make me a little nervous. I just don't, and maybe this is my bias. And also you mentioned like living in Texas and all these things. I don't know what Penn State could offer him that A&M wouldn't give him right away just to keep him. And I know that that's what everybody wants to say when it's their coach, but that is the way that I feel.
I think there's only one answer, and you're right. Like A&M's not going to get beat on the money.
No,
It's my understanding is Elko is a Northeast guy.
he is.
He's from somewhere up there. I'm not sure where, but if there's some appeal for him on returning to the region, I guess, that he's from, as opposed to being 1,000 miles away, I guess that could attract him to Penn State. If it's not Elko, who is it? Is it obvious then that the answer for Penn State and them specifically is Matt Rule? I mean, does Matt Rule have to continue Nebraska at some level of winning this season to be the guy? Or apparently he's like really, really good buddies with the Penn State AD. Like they vacation together. Yeah. And Rule has his own connections to Penn State. So does that make, I think even with Cignetti in the pool, Rule was a serious candidate. With Cignetti out of the pool, like the one thing that should make you feel better as an Aggie fan is it seems like it's got to be Matt Rule.
It seems like it has to be. And I think that, and to Brandon's tweet and to, all of us are talking about it, this is an insane amount of openings. So there are so many holes that need to be filled that it's like, we're going to have to go into, maybe NFL coordinators or who knows, former players are going to get into the game, but it makes sense. My question is, and we've had this argument a lot, and it's when you look at schools who have sustained success, to a certain level. And, Texas, Mac Brown won a national title. So you'll always have that. But at some point it was like, okay, we need to move on. And then it does take a little bit for most schools to even get back into that conversation. And you have to go through, few different coaching hires to go find your Steve Sarkisian. The only example that I can think of in my lifetime where it immediately got better from sustained successes at Georgia with Mark Richt, he kept them around, 9 to 10 wins every year. They go and get Kirby, and then all of a sudden they are where they are now. So I don't think Matt Rule can do that. And I think Matt Rule has done a great job. I thought he was a great hire for Nebraska. But if Penn State fans think that he's immediately going to come in and take Penn State to a level that James Franklin couldn't, I think that that's a little bit wishful thinking. But it makes the most sense to get him of all the names because of his connections. And they can obviously probably pay him more and give him more resources than Nebraska can.
Well, I think it's a little early, but there will be several big jobs. People are talking about Florida State. Florida, people are talking about it could be, and I think it's a little early to be saying this, but the conversation's already started about Oklahoma. It makes me wonder about James Franklin. Right. James Franklin will get another opportunity, and he might get another opportunity at a really big program, and I'm not sure he doesn't deserve that opportunity. To your point about the 12-team playoff, he did take Penn State on an easy path, granted on an easy path, but he did take Penn State to the semifinal. I know the record of not being able to win the big game. And I know that it's beyond sort of a statistical anomaly. It's enough to say he's doing something wrong at Penn State to being so unable to beat Ohio State, Michigan, and every other top-ranked team. But honestly, if I'm an AD, I'm digging into that a little more because if I'm getting a guy who put my program in the top 10 every year, took a team to the semifinal, I'm real interested. And I'm not sure there's a lot of competition with all of these jobs open that is, you're going to end up with names on your desk. And one of those best names, I think, is going to be James Franklin.
Oh, absolutely. When we do our top 10 quarterback or coach rankings going into the season, we always would say, well, James Franklin has to be there, right? Even though he can't get over that hump at Penn State. But there are schools across the country that would kill to go 9-3, 10-2 every single year. That, this is something that you look at a place like Arkansas, they would kill to do that. And I'm not saying James Franklin would be a good fit for them, but when you look at the expectations that he had at Penn State, those were so high because of what they expect. A lot of schools would say, hey, this guy's a really good coach. It just couldn't happen for whatever reason at Penn State. So, Maryland, that type of place would make the most sense for James Franklin. All these different places. It's also just a product, Will, of there's so many openings. There are going to be so many openings by the end of this college football season that it's almost impossible to say who's going to be a candidate at everywhere because there's so many different holes that need to be filled. And it's crazy.
Let's take the worst case scenario. Let's say that Oklahoma, Auburn, Florida, obviously Penn State are all available jobs. All of them fire their coach. You are now, let's play it completely hypothetically. You are Kurt Cignetti. You didn't sign that deal and say, I want to retire as an Indiana Hoosier. So now you're the belle of the ball. You could have any job that you want if you were going to leave
Indiana. And I'm only using Cignetti because I think after Cignetti, there's not an obvious, oh, that's the guy I want. I'm not sure Matt Rule is going to be everybody's number one. I don't think James Franklin will be everybody's number one. If Mike Elko were a guy looking for a job, I'm not sure he's going to be everybody's number one. He'll be somebody's. But It won't be like all those programs are competing for the same guy. With Cignetti, you could argue that could have been the case. Mm-hmm. So let's just say you're this hypothetical version of Cignetti, and you have in front of you Penn State, Florida, Auburn, Oklahoma. Which job is the one that you want? Set aside money. I'm going to get paid wherever I go. Okay. And let's set aside geography. I want to live here. I'm really asking which one is the one which you're going to be set up the best for success.
I do think that it's Penn State because I think that in the Big Ten, and you mentioned guys like Dan Lanning is another guy. And I understand like we're coming off of recency bias of them just losing to Indiana. But I do think Dan Lanning is somebody that it's not full Curt Cignetti level, but he's right there where a lot of people would want them. But you look at how good Ohio State is, and you can make the argument, and a lot of people do, that Ohio State's even better than they were last year. Well, they won the national title last year. You have Oregon, you have, USC has a big game this week against Notre Dame. But bigger picture, those four schools that you just named, three of them are in the same conference. One of them is in the Big Ten. And if I was to go right now and say what Penn State would give me in the Big Ten and the ability to make the playoff, even when I wasn't beating Ohio State, beating Michigan at their prime, I would want to go do that because clearly Penn State is set up for I don't want to say the easiest path because I don't believe the Big Ten is anywhere near easy. But when it comes to playing in the SEC, and I've been having this argument with my Big Ten colleagues for weeks now, like playing in the SEC is a grind every single year. You have teams like Vanderbilt that are going to pop up. You have teams that are down one year and great the next year. Where in the Big Ten, if you keep Penn State at a good level and even a 11 win season is going to get you into the playoff every single year, 10 wins, like that's where I'm going. I'm going where I think the path is the easiest, and being a good Penn State team is the easiest to the playoff.
Okay, let's go fast. Let's go fast because we may end up doing like 5 or 6 games this weekend. I want to get your picks on some games. You just mentioned Vanderbilt. So it's the early kick. Vanderbilt is host to LSU. It's number 10 LSU, number 17 Vanderbilt.
Okay. 10 LSU is overrated. I do not think they should be number 10. I think this is one of those games where we look and we say Brian Kelly and this offense who has looked awful, they're going to beat Vanderbilt, and we're going to be talking about Garrett Nussmeier was able to put up all those yards. No disrespect to Vanderbilt, I'm taking LSU.
Okay, this is a rivalry. People don't know that, honestly, outside the state of Texas, and they want it to be. They really want it to be, but it is. It is a rivalry. TCU, Baylor, both unranked.
Ooh, and you talk about teams I hate. I low-key hate Baylor. I'm going to take TCU. I was very high on TCU going in. I mean, Baylor with Dave Aranda has been great, but there's something that's not working for Baylor for me. I'm going to go TCU.
Okay. Number 5, Ole Miss at number 9, Georgia.
I feel like Georgia's going to want to get revenge from last year. Lane beat them in Oxford. Kirby is 1-2 against Lane. It's the Nick Saban Coordinator Bowl. It's in Athens, but I don't know. I like Ole Miss. I like Trinidad Chambliss. If I'm talking, to win the game, it makes me nervous. Keep it in the number, but I feel like Ole Miss is going to do it again.
Okay, the two best teams last year in the ACC are playing each other. It's SMU and Clemson.
I'm going to take Clemson. I had Clemson winning the national title going into this year is one of the worst things I've ever predicted. They've looked really bad, but Clemson also it was terrible. It was a terrible pick. I can own that. Clemson is another one of those, they've got all the talent in the world. He's got one of the most retained rosters in the country. I don't think SMU is going to hang with him, but I also feel, Dabo's got to figure something out. He's got to evolve with the game.
Okay. This one's the source of all the debate at Barstool, and Big Noon Kickoff. It's number 20 USC at number 13 Notre Dame.
I'm taking USC to win the game. I think that the line right now, or at least yesterday for our show, was 9.5. I think USC's offense is unbelievable, but this is a de facto playoff game, Will. I mean, we know Notre Dame lost to Miami. They lost to A&M. If they're going to make the playoff, they have to win out. But USC's 2-point loss to Illinois, like that, I feel like that was an anomaly. I think Illinois is a pretty good team. I love this USC offense. I think it's great. They can run the ball. They can throw the ball. And maybe it's a little bit biased, but I know when a quarterback and an offense can move the ball against Notre Dame, they do win this season. So that's where I'm going to go, USC.
We had this conversation a little bit earlier, I think this week on Will Cain Country, about the idea of who's a true blue blood. And The Athletic, I think, actually writes some really good articles about this on who's a true blue blood in college football. And the idea is that once you arrive at a blue blood, you don't really move. You've got to the top of the mountain as a college football coach. But that idea was undercut when we saw Brian Kelly go from Notre Dame to LSU and when we saw Lincoln Riley go from Oklahoma to USC. So I will be curious, back to this chaos that will be the offseason of hiring coaches, will we not see more of that actually? Will somebody, maybe like a Mike Elko or A&M, but others, lose their coach and sit there scratching their head like, why did we lose our coach to Auburn? You know what I mean? We're supposed to be on the same level or higher than Auburn.
Well, Lincoln Riley's a great example. I mean, talking about USC Notre Dame, I mean, this is the biggest game of Lincoln Riley's USC career, because when he left Oklahoma and he took Caleb Williams with him, it was like, they're going to go win in the, then Pac-12. And he hasn't had that happen. And the defenses have looked the same as they did at Oklahoma. But you talk about the way OU fans acted, like they felt like they were the most cheated on person on the planet. Like, coaches that make those moves, if it doesn't pan out for them, then it's a very tough scene. But yeah, I think this whole world of transfer portal and NIL, and like, you're right, everybody has money. So I think we'll see it. But as long as it doesn't happen to me, I'm okay with it happening anywhere else. If it's my coach that goes somewhere, then I'm going to be very angry. But if it's your coach, I don't care.
All right, last game, number 11, Tennessee, traveling to number 6, Alabama.
So I doubted Alabama, obviously, like most people did after they lost to Florida State. Disgusting game. I cannot bet against Alabama right now. Ty Simpson looks incredible. What Kalen DeBoer has done since that week 1 loss, like every single week they seem to get better. Tennessee has the best scoring offense in the SEC, the worst scoring defense in the SEC, and I think Ty Simpson and those guys are going to feast against it. I just, until Alabama proves to me that they don't get better every single time they step on the field, I have to take them.
All right, Kayce is the host of the Barstool College Football Show, but she also hosts the Pro Football Show. And I'm going to ask her really quickly, because I want to talk about pro football, if this is not true.
Okay.
If you look at record, one of the best teams in the NFL. If you look at point differential, far and away, the best team in the NFL. First of all, let's just play a game of quiz, pop quiz, trivia. Do you know what team I'm talking about? Which team has the best record and far and away the best point differential in the NFL?
The best record, it's not the Detroit Lions, because they lost. It's not the Bucks. I love Baker Mayfield. I feel like I'm put on the spot. I'm not good at pop quizzes. Maybe that's why I didn't get great grades at A&M. Who is it?
The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are 5-1, but their point differential is only plus 14. It's not the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, though.
It's not. Okay.
The Indianapolis Colts. The Indianapolis Colts are 5-1 with a plus 78 point differential. Are they the best team in the NFL?
We had this conversation yesterday in the office in Chicago, because that's where I work out of that office. And John Gruden is on the NFL show with me. And we were having a debate of who would be the NFL MVP right now if the season was to end today. And the two answers that everybody said were either Daniel Jones or Baker Mayfield, which is crazy to think about. Like both those guys. Daniel Jones, like what happened with him in New York, it's just a true example of, it's a product of where he was. It's just like Indiana Jones is killing it these days. I mean, it's shocking to me, but that's what makes the NFL, there's so many injuries right now, but like to see a guy like Baker Mayfield, shout out OU. It's like, he's always been the villain and had to play from behind. I feel like Daniel Jones had such a chip on his shoulder from what happened in New York. Like it's fun to watch. It's crazy. It's insane, but it's fun to watch.
Do you know what this NFL season has given validity to an idea that I've toyed with? And actually, most expert I've ever asked about this has rejected the idea, but it's the idea of the reclamation project or the second chance project at quarterback. And most guys I've spoken to, Armando Salguero over at Outkick, was like, no, when there's a sample size and guys have had their opportunity inside of a professional environment, if you're not going to make it, you're never going to make it. I think this was a conversation I had with him last year about the future of Bryce Young. Because I like Warren Buffett style value investing. Like, I like the idea of buying a guy low and seeing if you can kind of ride the wave if he can salvage the career. It's just another path to, oh my God, we got a quarterback in the top 10 in the NFL draft, and now we have our guy for the next 10 years. And if you look at the NFL standings right now, it's actually full of teams that are doing pretty well with second, third chance and reclamation project quarterbacks. Of course, Daniel Jones at the Colts. I'm going to count Aaron Rodgers on his third team with the Steelers. And even though they lost last night, it isn't because of Aaron Rodgers. Like,
No, he
First
played
of all, it's
great.
because Joe Flacco and Jamar Chase were incredible last
And
night.
Joe
And
Flacco.
speaking of reclamation quarterbacks, yeah, Joe Flacco,
Joe Flacco.
Mac Jones with the 49ers. They're all over the place right now. And I'm just like, if you're a team and you've missed on your top 10 draft pick, or you can't get that high because you're kind of a 7 and 9 type team, so you're never going to get yourself in line to draft, I don't know, maybe it's Garrett Nussmeier or Lenore Sellers or whoever it may be. I don't think it's Cade
Marcel
Klubnik
Reed.
anymore. Marcel, okay, yes, how dare I forget. Marcel Reed.
How dare you?
Maybe you dip in. Maybe you dip into the second or third chance reclamation quarterback like Daniel Jones.
See, and I completely agree with you. I respectfully for anybody who makes the other side of the argument. I mean, I feel like it's not just in sports, but it's anywhere. It's like, it's all about fit. It's all about who, the style of it and whoever your boss or your coach is. And for me, it's like these guys make it to the NFL and they have that much talent and that much ability. And if it just doesn't work with a system or the chemistry's off, or maybe the weapons aren't there or the offensive line, like there are so many different reasons why it might not work out. And sure, you could go and you could prove like, hey, I'm just not a next level quarterback, but you have to go be able to prove that. And I feel like Daniel Jones is a great example of that. I mean, Baker Mayfield's been all over the place, and look at Baker now.
Exactly.
I mean, that to me is, Baker Mayfield is must watch television. And when he got drafted to Cleveland, it was like, well, is he going to be, a bust? Like, what's he going to do? And then he's, made his rounds, and now he's finally found his fit. I love when guys can do this. And I think it's really cool. And then you look at New York with the Giants, and you have Jackson Dart, who right out of the gate seems to like reinvigorate this fan base. And that's awesome. So why not give a guy a try? Like, you never know who you're going to get. So yeah, I completely agree with you. And it's cool when you see guys get to go to another city and prove that they're good.
Baker Mayfield's the perfect example. Another one, by the way, doing really well right now, Sam Darnold in Seattle. Yeah. So I don't know. Say you're the Miami Dolphins and it's not working out with Tua. First of all, I would be, as a team, interested in being Tua's second landing destination. But if you're Miami, maybe you look, I don't know, for another Mac Jones, a guy who was highly thought of, who needs a second home. That's definitely what I would be doing as an NFL front office. But Kayce talks about pro football as well at the Pro Football Show and Unnecessary Roughness. You can also catch her on Big Noon Kickoff. Where are you guys this weekend?
So we actually are not traveling with them. Dave will be there. So Dave goes with them every single week. They're at the Holy War. They are in Provo, which we were in Utah. We were in Salt Lake City a few weeks ago. Those two teams, you talk about heated rivalries, Matt. Like, they hate each other, Will. They cannot stand each other. So they're there. We will be on the road next week. The location depends on what happens this weekend, but it will be in the Big Ten. But it's been awesome. Like, we get to travel. I tell people, like, we get to do the Barstool Flair, and then I like turn around and get mic'd up and go back into my network TV days and get to like wrangle grown men toddlers on national TV. So it's been a blast. But they're in Provo this weekend. I get to watch it from New York. So I'm very excited to have a couch weekend watching those guys out there and then watching games all day. Hopefully A&M beats Arkansas. And then I do a podcast at midnight every Saturday night, which is crazy. So it really just depends on my day. Depends on my day, with the mood. But I'm happy to be spending a weekend in New York.
By the way, Holy War, one of the best names for a rivalry game. I would put Bedlam up there.
Bedlam's great.
And I would put the Civil War. The Civil War in Oregon, Bedlam, the Holy War. What else? Those are some of the best rivalry names.
Usually and I say Red River Shootout, which I know some people say you're not allowed to say. It's supposed to be Red River Rivalry, which is too hard for me to say. A lot of the best names they try to take from us, right? You're not taking the Holy War from us. That is the Holy War. It is the Civil War. Like, I'm all in on that. But no, and like I said, I had never been to the state of Utah, let alone around those football teams. They were playing Texas Tech, and it was like 5 a.m. in the morning. And Will, all they wanted to talk about was how much they hate BYU. They didn't care that Texas Tech was there. All they wanted to do was just have us chant their chant about BYU. It's like, okay, I'm in on the Holy War. I think BYU is going to win because it's at home, but I'm all in on the hatred for them.
So really quickly, before we go with Kayce Smith here, you and I both grew up in Texas. You're younger, so I think you said you grew up during the era of the Big 12. We've both been to Austin, College Station, Dallas for the Red River Shootout, I'm sure. You've been to Lubbock. So you've been around SEC and Big 12 pregame and college football environment. I have been around Big 10 a little, primarily because I work at Fox.
Right.
And it's different. it's as much about a vibe, I would say, as anything else. But I think also the behavior of the fans. It's just everything is a little different. So you've probably had much greater exposure through your job now to all of these Big Ten environments. You just were talking about Utah, but I'm curious, what's your favorite environment that you got exposed to in the Big Ten? But while you're answering that, kind of give me what you think is the difference between going to a game, say, for example, in Columbus or Ann Arbor or Happy Valley versus going to a game in College Station.
So like I said, growing up, it was all college football to me. I feel like the South stays true to that. Like the Big 12 and the SEC, I mean, it's everything you could possibly care about is happening on Saturday. So it all depends. We've gone all over the Big Ten with Barstool, especially now with Fox, but because, Dave went to Michigan, Dan Katz went to Wisconsin. So we've been all over. Wisconsin is awful right now, and you want to talk about another job that's going to come open, like they should fire Luke Fickell, I don't know, like right this second. When Wisconsin is good, I loved going to Madison. Madison has been so much fun. Just everything about that game day atmosphere. And it was also when like the Brewers were making a run in the playoffs. So it was very fun. Ann Arbor is obviously great. I do feel like the biggest difference to me is one, the weather. I'm a cold weather girl. That's probably another reason why I don't want to go right back to the South. I love the cold. I love this. I think that I know I'm a crazy person. I think the biggest difference is just like the energy around the difference between cold weather football and like hot weather football. Like the girls, it's like all the hot girls go to Ole Miss, all the hot girls go to Georgia and Auburn, right? Well, it's also because they get to wear sundresses and boots. Like that's the big difference to me. It's like a whole different energy. But I'm an SEC girl. I would much rather, if I could take Big Ten weather and put it in College Station, perfect game day for me.
Yeah, but then you'd fundamentally change it. You'd take the boots and skirts away, and you'd be all wrapped up in puffy coats and a little bit of a dour attitude because you're an anomaly. Not you and the people of Buffalo like cold weather football. Everybody else, we like to. Now, granted, we look for seats in the shade. You don't want to be in the seats in the sun, but we do want. Nice.
I don't like to melt. I people ask me all the time, like, how do you not like hot weather? You grew up in Texas. I said, I have no idea. But the idea of melting, I can put as many layers on as I possibly want. Will, I can't just take everything off when I'm at a game. Like I need to be bundled. I love the snow. Sweating at a football game that I'm not playing in is not for me. It's just not for me. So maybe that's the root of all of this. Okay. The root of all of this, of me loving the East Coast, has nothing to do with anything but the fact that I love cold weather.
All right, Mom, we still have some work to do.
I know.
The weather's not right. She likes the energy of the village, but I think you can get her back to Texas. Trust me, I've been there. You can get her back to Texas. All right, check out Kayce Smith at any of her number of shows. The Barstool College Football Show, the Midnight Show on Saturdays, which is a perfect time to get a breakdown of what just happened that day, in the Pro Football Show. Kayce Smith, it's been really fun. It's really fun. And when you get back to Texas to visit your family, make sure you come into the Will Cain Country studios.
Oh, I would love that. Thank you so much. My mom will be very happy. So she's probably going to bother you about getting me to move back to Texas, so that it's a full circle thing. But we'll definitely do that anytime.
All right. Thank you, Kayce.
Thanks.